Hello and welcome to this interview with the 2022 Khayrallah Prize Grand Prize winner Pascale Seigneurie and her co-creator Dahlia Nemlich. My name is Lauren Stewart-Chalter-Meyer and I'm honored to host this interview. The Moïse Khayrallah Center for Lebanese Diaspora Studies is dedicated to research about Lebanese immigrants in the United States and throughout the world, and to preserving and sharing that knowledge with the scholarly community and general public. As part of advancing its mission, the Khayrallah Center awards several annual prizes, of which the Khayrallah Prize is one. The Khayrallah Prize recognizes the best artistic expressions of Lebanon and the Lebanese diaspora. Whether in visual art, written work, performance, or electronic medium, the Khayrallah Prize identifies, awards, and publicly honors those whose original work focuses on any aspect of life in Lebanon or among Lebanese immigrants, whether in the past or present. The winner receives a monetary prize of $10,000 and is invited to receive the prize at a public ceremony with a presentation of their winning contribution. Pascale Seigneurie has been named this year's grand prize winner for her short film Roadblock, which she wrote and also starred in as the main character Farah. It is now my pleasure to introduce Pascale, Dahlia, and Marine, the creative team behind this amazing film. Pascale Seigneurie, the film's writer and leading actress, is a trilingual Lebanese-American actress, dancer, and screenwriter trained at the Conservatoire National Supérieur d'Art Dramatique in Paris and Fordham University in New York City. She recently played the lead role in Roads to Olympia, a feature-length sports drama directed by Ramazan Nayanev, as well as multiple award-winning shorts, 3 of which she also wrote: Abroad, the 2021 Khayrallah Art Prize winner, and Manara, the 2019 Venice Film Festival, as well as Roadblock, 2022's FIFOG d'Argent Award winner. Dahlia Nemlich, the film's director, is a French-Lebanese writer, director, and producer. In 2020, she directed her first film titled Roadblock, a 16-minute short produced by Marine Vaillant of Dewberry Films and written by Pascale Seigneurie, shot during the Lebanese Revolution that premiered in El Ghona Film Festival in 2020. It is distributed by Manifest Pictures, got selected for the Fête du Court Métrage 2022, and recently won the FIFOG d'Argent in Switzerland. Dahlia also directed and produced 2 music videos, Beirut, which gathered upwards of 20,000 views on YouTube, and Idak, soon to be released. She is currently finalizing her second short film, Somewhere in Between, as well as developing her first feature film, Asa, Like a Fish in a Bowl, selected to the writing atelier of Less is More, Groupe West in 2022 and Lab Med, Meditalent in 2023. In parallel to her work as a director, Dahlia has been a producer since 2011, working on series, features, and digital content with TF1, Full House Production, Webedia, and more recently, The Talkies in Beirut. Marine Vaillant, the producer of the film, who unfortunately cannot join us today, studied history and history of arts in Rennes, France. After 4 years volunteering at the Sundance Film Festival, she worked as a line producer around the world. She then worked for Les Films de Terre-Neuve on various features such as Where Do We Go Now by Nadine Lebaki, Ranjan by Rachid Jedani, Jackie in the Kingdom of Women, Riyad Satouf, Riding with Molière, Naked in Normandy by Philippe Luguet. She sharpened her skills to produce while developing her taste for fostering new talents, and in 2020 she created Dewberry's Films to produce short movies. Her first release, Roadblock, directed by Dahlia Nemlich and written by Pascale Seigneurie, is represented by Manifest and won the FIFOG d'Argent in 2022. Roadblock has been shown in more than 50 countries during the Fête du Court Métrage 2022. Lifechanging, directed by Michel and Noël Kesserouani, was presented at the Biennale de Lyon 2022 and makes its international premiere at the Berlinale 2023. With Special Touch Studios, Marine Vaillant produces features and documentaries and supports directors from the Middle East with projects marked by a strong mix of cultures, fruits of the encounter between East and West, like her career. Pascale, Dahlia, welcome. You are all 3 such amazingly creative women. It is an honor to speak with you. We're sad not to be able to speak with Marine, but we're excited to hear the comments she relayed to you to speak on her behalf. So to start off, we are really excited to hear about your connection to Lebanon or the diaspora, what kinds of things you feel drawn to, what kinds of memories you like to focus on, and just the defining moments for you in terms of your identity there. And Pascale, we can start with you.
Okay, so I guess, first of all, thank you so much for having us.
Oh, thank you for joining.
And with regards to Lebanon, the diaspora, all of that, the first thing I'd like to say is that both myself and Dahlia are not technically Lebanese because the mother does not pass on the nationality in any Arab countries. And so that has always been a thing. Like, I feel like an imposter. And actually, when I applied with Roadblock for the Khayrallah Prize, that was one of my first questions. I was like, oh, am I even allowed? Am I legitimate? And I think it was Akram himself that answered, like, yes, we don't subscribe to these patriarchal rules.
No.
Of course, we want to see your work. And I was like, oh, so I am Lebanese.
Yes.
And that's a thing. It's a huge thing. And it's an obsession. And I grew up in Lebanon, but I moved to New York at the age of 18, and then Paris. Always going back and forth, of course, to Beirut. And like, the further I went, the further away from Beirut I was, kind of the more obsessed I became with it, and wanting to go back, but also kind of feeling like an imposter, and I do belong, I don't belong, blah, blah. That's why it's really at the center of everything that I do in terms of writing and often acting as well.
Wonderful. And I think that imposter syndrome is not unique in the diaspora. I think we all have an element of it, whether it's the outrageously outdated patriarchal citizenship rules or the fact that perhaps our Arabic's not as good as we hope it might be.
Right.
So many
or
things
even you just have been abroad for so long that you start feeling like you don't belong anymore when you go back. And at the same time, you're never completely integrated anywhere else. So it's
a very difficult spot to be in. And Dahlia, I'm curious to hear what your perspective is on being a member of the diaspora.
Yeah, well, it's always been a bit schizophrenic in a way, because we were like, I was personally born in France, and my mom flew in France during the war. She was very young. And for her, it was always her worst nightmare that we would come back here in Lebanon. And so it was, I mean, we came back here when I was 8 years old, and then we left again and whatever. So it's been a bit of a back and forth since I was young. But her worst nightmare was that I came back here to Lebanon at an adult age, which I did 6 years ago, and I've been staying here since. And it's been like the best decision of my life. Also reconnecting to my roots in a way, because it is true that when there is always like a Lebanese spices at home, wherever you are in the world. But you are you're sometimes disconnected with the language, with the music, with so many things that I think was for me a necessity to come back here and to try to understand what was all this this mix in a way. So yeah, I've been here, and it's not always easy to live in Lebanon, but it's definitely I think the best decision I've ever made to come back here.
That's wonderful. And I think so many people sort of toy with that idea. Do I move back even though I know the situation is so challenging? And I think more and more in the generation of people perhaps who had parents who left during the Civil War phase, we're seeing that longing to return and to sort of establish a new regime of life, and to say, well, things have been bad and they can be bad, but that doesn't mean this place isn't a place that I want to be.
And I think it's also important to not comment on dit en anglais, to stay, just to give a chance for everybody is leaving, saying khalas, there is no more chance, we need to move away. But also, if we stay and if we fight a bit for the country,
to take the leap of faith, you mean? I think to take a leap of faith.
Yeah, and to just be present and have some faith in the country, because things are turning around, and then there's a lot of motivation and changes. And I think it's good to see also that, not just to see the negative that is going on, because there's a lot of positive that is also going on in parallel.
I love that. And I think that's a theme that comes through in Roadblock that I want to discuss when we get back to it. But before we jump to the film, I was hoping that we could talk about both of your journeys to filmmaking as a career. It's a very difficult career to get into. It's Pascale, I think you've joked previously that people are constantly like, oh, so what does that do for you? And it's like, well, it's fulfilling, and it's very hard to break into. There's a lot of big challenges to face when you're entering that. So what brought you into writing, into acting, and then conversely into writing, directing, and producing?
So for me, it all starts with performing. I started off as a dancer, and I'm still a dancer, then transitioned to acting. And I guess I was pretty dissatisfied with the kind of roles that I was getting or not getting. And at first it was really just a way to give myself something that I wanted to act. But quickly writing became a thing of its own as well, because as an actor, you are very passive and you audition, but then you sit around waiting, and did I get it? Did I not get it? And when you write, you're kind of in control of things. And of course, like you said yourself, it's very hard to break into. You write a script, that doesn't mean it's going to be produced. And if it is, probably not going to be a huge budget at first. And if it does get made, probably not going to be seen by a lot of people. And like at every single step, there's a nightmare of doors closing in your face. But it's extremely fulfilling to have something to point to and to be able to say, I did that. I wrote that, and that's me in it. And my one of my best friends ever who directed it, and another great friend who produced it. Like, it's extremely gratifying when something does work out, and then you win a prize for it. So yeah.
And then you win a prize for its truly excellent work. And I think that the exciting thing is for a prize like this to look at people who aren't coming from these big budgets and are making these interventions that are necessary, but perhaps overlooked other places. Dahlia, what brought you into the filmmaking world?
It all started with a far-fetched dream since I was a kid to be a director. I didn't really understood why, but I just wanted to. And then it came and then a lot of insecurity came in the way when I was growing up. So I was like, no, it's not for me. I'm not good enough, blah, blah, blah. So I went into production. And so that was my paid job. And then Pascale came back into my life. I did direct some stuff before, but it was like zero budget. It was a bit like just trying out. And it was really something that I've always wanted to do. And so she came with this incredible amount of motivation and encouragement. And she was like, I want you to direct Roadblock. So I was like, no, I can't do it. And she's like, yes, yes. And so I did. And I think we did a pretty good job altogether. And so starting from that, I think this, to be very honest, really opened a lot of doors for me, mental, emotional doors first. And so I went on to write my first short and direct it as a second. And I'm right now writing my first feature, and it was selected at several residencies. So it gave me the confidence to be like, oh, maybe I am good enough. So I'm going to do that. So that's where I am now.
What a wonderful example of the way that I think especially female creators can like build each other up, with women building each other up together. This was a team of 3 women was really moving to me personally. And not to say that there aren't creators across multiple genders that are just absolutely phenomenal. We saw so many in our submissions, but
our DP was a woman, is a woman as well.
Right. And so I think there's just something really beautiful about this like production between these sort of 3 leading roles, the writing, and then of course the acting, which is its own thing, the directing and the producing. And that actually kind of leads into my first question about the project, about Roadblock, which is related to Pascale. In your statement, when you submitted, you mentioned that one of the focal points of the film is to look at manhood and this sort of patriarchal sectarian order in Lebanon, which is a perfect way to describe it. And that comes through really powerfully without being something that has to be overtly stated, but it's just a really great theme for the film. I'm curious if that was always intended to be the theme for the film, and how you guys personally have sort of navigated what is a really clear manifestation of toxic masculinity, especially in these spaces. Dahlia, if we can start with you.
That's like the question. Somehow the film is about, we were talking about this right before, somehow the film is about the miscommunication in Lebanon. I think the relationship we have with masculinity is mainly like major miscommunication that brings us to that toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
And I guess that's like for us the main problem in a way. Like it's not just miscommunication between men and women. It's maybe something that is more internal with men, because we have so many expectations. So yes, women are in a certain way oppressed in the Middle East, but it also comes with a huge oppression coming from masculinity, where they maybe don't have the space to express themselves the way they would want to, and that is the result of that lack of expression in a way.
Yeah, I think that's a wonderful point. Pascale?
Yeah, it's about how, like Dahlia was saying, it's pretty obvious in what ways women are oppressed in the Middle East and Lebanon. We know that, but we rarely feel bad for men who are, I would say, even bigger victims of the toxic masculinity thing, because at least I get to feel my feelings, you know, like that's really what we wanted to show with the Riyadh Summit, or the two militia men's dynamic with each other. You've got the overbearing one who's basically, by the end of the film, like turning the younger one still has a bit of emotions in him, and you know, and that gets just completely smashed out of him. Meanwhile, the older one is like the Antar and the big badass who just does not feel things anymore unless it's with his dog, which
that was one of my favorite moments. That it was like, look at this little soft heart crawling out from behind this facade of muscle.
Exactly.
I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And in a way, it's the only portal for him to show his emotion.
It's considered appropriate.
Judge them in a way.
Yeah.
There's no judgment from the dog, so that
and everyone needs to it does need to come out, this side of people. So it's going to come out either, if you're going to oppress it and make it shameful, it's going to come out either in violence, or if you get to kiss your dog, or like be cute in ways that are socially acceptable. But you know, other than that, I feel like men are very oppressed in that way.
I think that's a great observation. And one of the things that you come away with from the film is looking at the three male characters, the three men in the film are all suffering from this in a different way. That it's none of your characters felt like a stereotype or flat. They all had a robustness to them. And I'm kind of jumping ahead in my thought process here, but I was shocked by how much character you were able to build in so little time. For such a short film, I felt like I knew all of these people had a backstory, and that there were things that led them to the moment that is being filmed. And I'm wondering if you guys can speak to how hard that was from the screenwriting perspective, and then from the directing perspective, what were you doing in order to make sure that we all understood this isn't just a person with a single character trait. They have a whole life, and it's complex and we can't understand it all, but you'll see that there are little whispers of it here and there. From the directing, let's start with the directing aspect. What was that like?
I think we should start with the writing process.
All right.
That came like the rest of it.
Then let's start. The director has spoken. Pascale, let's start with the writing.
Thank you, Dahlia, and thank you, Lauren, for that question, and that huge, what I take as a huge compliment regarding the characters having depth, because the reason that they do is because that's like 1.5 years, if not 2 years of writing development. Like the final script is short, yes, because that's like our parameters as independent filmmakers, but it's years of work and pages that work that you don't see. Each one of these characters has an extensive backstory, and their versions of this script with just the two militiamen, just the couple, like they're fully fledged because it takes time and put a lot of work into it. And also, of course, by the time you get to production, the obviously directors and actors make it come alive in a way that really hopefully registers with people. But I do think it starts with writing a lot and for a long time.
And I'm sure deleting a lot and realizing
deleting
the story that
I'm
means
telling you, you would be shocked. like if the script is 16 pages, go look in my folder, in my the Roadblock folder. I swear it's hundreds. I'm not kidding. So like, I'm so glad that came through.
But you feel it, you really do. You feel that there's a history. It makes you almost wish that the story were longer, but I think it's actually at a perfect length the way it is. It leaves a lot to question, and it's very expertly done on all fronts. Dahlia, what has been your experience in trying to?
It was a lot of it was a lot of discussion with the actors to try to understand, for them to be able to shape and to embody this character in particular. So during the production, well, I cannot say a lot of discussion because we had 3 days to prepare, so it was very condensed.
Yes.
But yeah, there was a whole process with the actors to try to discuss about the trait of characters and to like question answers to try to see if they understand the characters. Apart for Pascale, because Pascale was already she was already living through each of the characters, so she was like the easiest actress to work with.
That sounds amazing. But I do think you actually tipped me right to my next question, which was, this was shot in an incredibly short amount of time. And I understand that must have been extraordinarily difficult, especially that you were shooting in the middle of the Thawra, that you've got the revolutions literally going on in the background of like some of your shots. Dahlia, can you speak to what that experience was like? What were some of the challenges? And did you have any like, that's a really lucky moment that we are actually here with the protesters, and it happened to be just like, oh, this is going to be perfect for the film? Well,
my first thought at the beginning was already without the revolution, I was like, I can do it. So imagine your producer Marine coming to and being like, okay, we're shooting in a week. I was like, oh.
Well, wait, we need to explain that it was Marine's decision to like, it was not supposed to be shot we were supposed to shoot in 6 months after we actually shot. But then when the revolution happened, Marine called me with this crazy idea of rewriting the script, because the initial script was supposed to be in a dystopian future after the type of revolution that exactly happened. And so she said, can you transpose that to right now, and let's just do it. So I rewrote in like 3 days. Dahlia started pre-production, and then we all like jumped into it because it was happening, you know. Go ahead.
My apartment became a production, and so it was like crazy. And the thing is that by the time that we were like setting up the dates and the team and everything, the equipment, for whatever reason that I can't remember, the revolution was dying out a bit in Beirut. So the day before, we decided to go to Tripoli, which is in the north of Lebanon, where it was like on fire. And so we went literally like just with like a bag. Like the next day, it was everything was very like, we were taking decisions on the spot, and it was beautiful. Honestly, we were like I mean, the energy of the whole thing, because it was so in the momentum, I think was great. And there's also like a little bit of reportage documentary feel to it, and discovering with everyone. So we were being revolutionaries with them in a way. It was a very interesting approach of filmmaking, and just as a whole, even production. So yeah.
And it wasn't an appropriation of the revolution, it was a contribution to it in a way, because Marine, I think if she were here, she would have insisted on what Dahlia just said about like having a documentary feel as well. So it's not about like, oh, let's appropriate this to be all cool in our film. No, it was really like a heartfelt
and also we didn't know
humble contribution.
We didn't know what to expect, because in the original script, it was like the scenes were written, but because Pascale had to change some stuff, and then we went to Tripoli and we didn't know really what to expect. So there was there were the discours, speech.
Speeches. Oh yeah, those are supposed to be there.
The actor wasn't actually understanding, so she was translating, and there was a lot of improv.
I thought that was 100% scripted. So the fact that you really took that moment out of your experience in Tripoli is fantastic, because it does feel like you're just running through a documentary, the only place it diverges from there is when suddenly we're only focusing on two characters. And even then you're like, this is really happening, or is it not really happening? And I think the point is that it really could happen. It felt very grounded in that way. And the shots of the protests were, it catapulted me back to a place where I felt that joy and that like swelling of pride and thinking like, look at what people can do. And perhaps that emotion that Dahlia presented to you to go back to Lebanon and say, look at what we can do with the power of the people. I thought that was beautifully captured. The cinematography at the night scene was absolutely wonderful. And actually, this segues perfectly into my next question. We are going to, with your permission, include a small scene from the film as part of the interview. And I was actually hoping to include the scene where Farah and Anthony have arrived at the protest in the evening, so it's nighttime, and they're having this discussion about being at the protest, and she's teaching him, the lingo of the protests and joking about, well, the rave music hasn't even started yet. We're not leaving. And I'm wondering if you guys could sort of talk about what it was like to shoot that scene, because you would have been sort of out in the middle of what was going on just all around you, and if there were any challenges, since you can't really control what the protests are doing, you're just kind of riding the wave as it is. What was that like?
ثورة 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 كلهم يعني كلهم كلهم يعني كلهم كلهم يعني كلهم الشعب يريد إسقاط النظام الشعب يريد إسقاط النظام هيدي هي.
Bon mais c'est bon, je suis prêt pour demain là.
Chaud demain, attends, là, à 23h ils vont mettre la musique, ça va être une autre ambiance.
Attends, du coup ça veut dire qu'on part après minuit là?
Mais oui, c'est fou, ce que t'as encore les réflexes de ton père et de la guerre civile, حبيبي, ما بقى حدا عم يخطف أجانب، ما تخاف.
C'est quoi, y'a rien de quoi?
Kidnappé en plus.
C'est moi qui vais te kidnapper, imbécile.
Voilà. Et tu m'emmènes où?
Je t'emmène en France.
Et ma famille, je leur fais quoi?
Tes parents c'est les premiers à vouloir te protéger de ce bordel là.
Mais quel bordel, Habib? C'est l'anti-bordel ça, regarde comme c'est bien organisé.
Pour l'instant, d'accord, pour l'instant, mais ça va pas durer ça.
Ok, merci pour les analyses géopolitiques du franchouillard.
Franchouillard, je suis né à Mashgaran, un père libanais moi.
Ah, t'es né à Mashgaran?
À Mashkhara, ça va.
Non, pas à Mashkhara, Mashghara. Non, c'est pour rire.
Can I go?
Yes.
Yeah.
It was really, so the scene starts like they're sitting on a car.
Mm-hmm.
So that was actually very funny because we were always with someone that is from the city, and Elias that helped us a lot on the film, and he had some issues with the kissing part.
Mm-hmm.
So it was kind of funny because we're in the middle of Tripoli, and it's a bit of a sensitive subject to just like kiss in the middle of nowhere. And on top of that, I don't know if I should say that, by the way. On top of that, we don't know whose car is it. We're just like,
It's even better.
on someone's car, and we were like, oh my god, like is every. So it was really like à l'arrache, quoi. I don't know how to say that in English, but
guerrilla
Improv.
filmmaking. I don't know.
Yeah.
Jumping into it. They were Marine. A bit overly worried about the kissing and Tripoli thing. I mean, it was fine.
It's fine. It was
I don't
fine.
know. It was completely fine.
Many moments because we were all very stressed out. We had just this one day to shoot the whole thing, and then in Tripoli there was no rave after it because the raves were happening in Beirut, obviously. So we had to recreate the rave at the end. So it was really fun. Like the whole thing was really a blast. But I don't know if that was the question, but that was
That's perfect. Yes, Pascale, go ahead.
Sorry. From the acting perspective for that scene that you asked about in the car, I just wanted to say one thing that I'm really proud of. We did it in what, Dahlia, like 1-2 takes max, because like Dahlia was saying, it's like, let's go. We don't know whose car this is. We don't know what's going to happen. And like just another thing, like credit goes completely also to the actor Ahmed Amadi Chassan, who's one of my also best friends, which is the positive thing with independent filmmaking. Okay, you get to work with all of your friends. And so he and I had rehearsed like crazy, and we know each other really well. And so we just jumped into it and did it in like 2 takes, which was awesome.
That's amazing.
And, yeah.
Wow. I think it was a really great tone setting scene for the rest of the film, that you get this sense of this is the energy that they're feeding off of. And so then when the film progresses to the titular roadblock, suddenly all of that momentum kind of comes to a halt because they're meeting a literal obstacle.
Right.
In regards to the character of Anthony, I thought that the dialogue between Anthony and Farah was so beautifully done in terms of sort of teasing out these tensions that exist between people who do live in Lebanon and people who reside outside of Lebanon, but maybe come back every so often. I had never felt it or read it vocalized as effectively as, like, the argument felt natural, but it also hit all of the points that I feel like most people have probably talked about. And I'm curious if this was based on conversations that you actually had, or if the traveling back and forth has created those tensions for either of you that you've had to experience and kind of work your way through.
That's a question for me.
For both of you, but we can start with you, Pascale.
Okay, just because of the dialogue thing. The dialogue is extremely specific to all the voices in my head, because like I've got both like the Farah side is what I think I would have felt if I had stayed, and like her reproaches to Anthony, especially when she tells him you're just a part-time Lebanese, is what I like whenever I'm feeling guilty. I'm like, that's what I tell myself. So I have both complete, like both obsessions in my head, and yeah, so it was written based on those conversations in my own head, and developed also thanks to, again, the extensive rehearsals that Ahmed and I did months before, because we both live in Paris and we knew we were going to do this, and he's extremely thorough as an actor, so he also contributed.
Oh, great.
In a way. Yeah.
Wonderful. And Dahlia, have you felt that tension as well, especially now you have returned and you've been living there for a while? Perhaps it's the tension on the other side of like having been in the diaspora and then returning back to Lebanon.
Yeah, I mean, I constantly get a lot of question of why I'm living here, for example. I think there's a I mean, when you're in France or anywhere else in the world and you see the news and you have a complete different way of seeing, of feeling things, and the impression is kind of different. I'm not saying that stuff are not dramatic sometimes here, but when you are here, it's a choice. It's a very different. Yeah, I think things are different when you are here. So you do get you do get people trying to protect you in a way of coming back, and also because you have the privilege of being able to go back. So yeah, I do. Yeah, it's a dialogue that certainly echoes.
It's interesting what you say about the people who want to protect you from being there is kind of what happens when Anthony imposes this plane ticket to Farah, like in this typical nice guy way of like, oh, I'm going to save you. And she doesn't want to leave, even though it is horrible. Yeah. And I think that's what you get that a lot too. Of like, what are you doing?
Yeah. And there's also like, I also noticed during the Thawra and everything, like there's a guilt of people that are not here because they want to be here, they want to be part of it, they want to feel what's going on, and at the same time it's very challenging as a feeling, but there's also guilt from the diaspora that is not here.
Of course. And then even when you do go back as the diaspora, like I wasn't living in Lebanon at the time, but obviously went back for the film, and I'm just as invested, of course, but then like people who live there tell me, and rightly so, like, yeah, but you don't really get it because like you're not here, like we don't really get it. And then, you know, on both sides there's,
but I think honestly I think we don't get it, because when the 4th of August happened and I was in Lebanon, and I felt like the Lebanese people that were in France it was so hard for them to not grasp whatever is going on here. And when I left the country a few days, a few weeks later, like it was still like in the momentum of all of it, it was even harder for me when I was away, because I was doing things in a much more dramatic way. And then I came back here and everything was like, okay, it's okay. Like we have 12 hours of electricity cut. We're fine. We're used to it. But when I was in France, I was not able to understand, and like I had so many feelings. So I do get how hard it is for the diaspora to go through these feelings without being here. It's super frustrating.
I think you've both touched on this really really poignantly, in that there is a feeling in the diaspora of being sort of in this in-between space, in the liminal space of, I don't really belong where I am, but I don't really belong back in Lebanon necessarily, especially for anyone who's coming from a mixed parentage perspective. And then you add, of course, the layer of like, oh, well, you're not actually Lebanese because you can't get a passport, which is nonsense, obviously. But I do think a lot of people feel that way, and that amplifies the guilt, because you think, well, I should be there, but I'm not. Instead, I'm here defending or protecting something that people don't understand. In the United States, and I assume in other Western nations, there's a
completely, because and the thing of being far when something happens, it's like, it's shocking that outside, if you're whatever in France and the US, no, obviously they're not going to be as affected at all, and life goes on, and you're like, how is everything happening here as if it was normal when everything just crumbled? Like, it's very I guess schizophrenic is the best word. I can, like, you're here but you're there, but
it is very, you get this sense of, is this reality or is it not? I don't really know what's happening. To get back to Roadblock, I don't want to spoil the ending because it's brilliant. And I read the artist statement before I watched the film, and after I saw the film, I was like, I should have waited to see the big reveal at the end, because I thought it was great. But I did want you guys to speak a little bit to the importance of these sort of larger than life-changing moments. Thawra, a checkpoint inspection gone wrong, that kind of crossed paths with something that's very day-to-day, just kind of like, oh, this is nothing, this is no big deal, but suddenly it is a big deal. What experiences, if any, have you both had in that, where sort of these big moments kind of overtake the little day-to-day activities of your life, or the day-to-day activities of your life affect how you deal with these big moments?
I guess I'll start just because I have an answer off the top of my head. The inspiration for the screenplay is based off a story that happened to someone in my family who during the Civil War was stopped at a roadblock, one of those like Christian Muslim roadblocks where if you're on the wrong side, they'd like shoot you immediately. Right. And what happened to her is exactly what happened to Farah, where she had this notebook where she wrote down the dates of her menstrual cycle. And they looked really suspicious to these militiamen because she got really embarrassed, because she was so hyped to have a uterus. And so they were asking her, what are these? And she's like, nothing. She just would not say what it was, even though literally it was life and death. And they actually got suspicious of her, and she was with her brother, and her brother was like, oh my God, just say it. They're about to shoot us in the face. And when I heard, I've always loved that story ever since I was like 3 years old. And then when I started getting interested in writing and film and all that, I was like, whoa, that'd be such a cool scene, because like you said, like something so mundane and so dumb in a context of life or death, war, insane stakes. Like the stakes are so high, but the cause of what's happening is just so mundane, trivial, normal, and that makes me laugh in a dark way. I mean,
it's very dark humor, and I want to get back to the humor point, but Dahlia, what has been your experience with those kinds of things? You said you were in Beirut when August 4th happened. I think that caught almost everybody, like nobody expected this. What was it like to sort of have these huge moments interrupting just day-to-day things?
It's hard to tell, because you kind of like it in a sad way. You kind of get used to these feelings and to these things. The 4th of August was, I mean, I'm putting it on another shelf, because I think it's like much bigger than any other things that happen on a daily basis. But it's true that our life changed here, and in a way we're being very resilient. Like if we get 1 hour of electricity from the government, we're like super happy and we're celebrating, which technically we shouldn't be celebrating. Because it's not normal to have that. So yeah, like it's sometimes it's a struggle, but I personally always try to tell myself that the grass is always greener on the other side. So I'm not sure that this defines happiness on a regular basis. you do with what you have, and I mean, that's more of a philosophy. But yeah, the 4th of August, I think we're all kind of PTSD from it. So I think this is how it affected everyone, and everyone that experienced this dramatic moment. Yeah.
No, thank you. That both of you, that I think it's hard to understand how it is to navigate those kinds of seemingly silly day-to-day things when there are all these bigger sort of challenges weaving in and out of our lives on a day-to-day basis. I wanted to get back to the humor because Roadblock is very funny, which caught me off guard because I think oftentimes when people are trying to make media about Lebanon, it always comes off with this like serious nostalgia. Like when Farah is singing the national anthem and she's got just like this excitement for it, and usually it's more like, it's very serious, we're talking about the motherland, you know, like the sense of we have to have a gravitas, and I found the levity very refreshing. Is that something you do very often with your work? You sort of like alleviate a dark situation with a bit of humor? Is that like a theme for you in your writing and your projects?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't stand, like, I also don't think there's one without the other. I don't think there's humor without drama. I don't think there's drama without humor. And especially like what you said about Lebanese films, or how it's portrayed often, like the graveness is not really representative of Lebanese people. Like that's not, we're an extremely funny and light, what?
Festive.
Yes.
Yeah, and light, yeah, and hilarious people, and even in the darkest circumstance, perhaps even because of those dark circumstances, I don't know, humor is always there. It's an escape. Like all of my mom's war stories, or even some of her own like stories of whatever 2006 or 2008 or whatever horrible events have happened, there's always something really hilarious about it. Oh God, not the event itself. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
Right?
Yeah, but the way people are processing it, I think,
exactly
relies deeply on humor.
Right.
And your humor was very reminiscent of some of Nadine Lebaki's work, where she's like, look at this bizarre landscape of like,
right.
we're just going to pretend this isn't happening. And here's a really funny story to sort of talk about these things. And I think humor makes it accessible. It allows people to say, oh, I don't just have to go in and pity these poor people.
Right.
This oppressed woman, this poor man who doesn't know the language getting
Right.
pulled over. It's accessible. I think that's a really brilliant piece of it.
It's good for people also to relate in a way. It makes it a bit more relatable. And humor is a defense mechanism. And like Pascale says, for me, it's the same. In my family, we have war stories of like bombs coming in the house and everything. And it always has a funny ending. You know, in
of
a weird
course.
and so.
And also, I think humor is really probably the best way to get a message across. Like people will listen. If you make them laugh, they will listen. Like
It's true.
Look at what stand-up comics talk about. Like they talk the biggest, craziest issues, the craziest takes on things. But you receive it because you're laughing, and that like really gets people to listen better, I think.
Guys, I'm sorry to put some. I have to plug my computer.
Of course, go for it. In terms of the humor, and you mentioned stand-up, is that something that you are participating in as someone who's in the performing world? Are you doing stand-up?
I do stand-up, yeah. I don't do it as often as I should, I guess, but for many years now, I have done it.
That's wonderful. We're getting close to sort of the end of the interview. I wanted to know, I know you guys said that Marine had some things that she really wanted to make sure were communicated, perhaps especially from her perspective as the producer. What kinds of other things did you want to say about this amazing short film?
Talking about the challenges of filming in the middle of the revolution. Again, I just wanted to give credit to her insane idea of transposing the script. Like, I don't think many producers would have done this. It was a huge risk that she herself took and financed herself.
Right.
And I mean, I don't want to speak on her behalf, but I do think that she is extremely happy with the result. Although, yeah, you should have seen her during filming. The poor woman, she was like so on edge and lacking sleep. But she pulled through. Like, this is 100% like on Marine's shoulders, you know.
Yeah, she definitely created an amazing environment. Also for us to be able to express ourselves and to work in the best possible way in that type of environment. And I think like after the shoot, we were all so sad because it was like such a great experience to work, the three of us. Like, we're a bit like the Powerpuff Girls, and and I think that I also think we created something there that is still going on. We're still working with Marine individually together, and it's a collaboration that we really want to nurture and push forward. And we both have our first feature. Pascale writing her first screenplay, and me directing our first feature with her. With Special Touch Studio in France. So it's like a great opportunity for the three of us. And so yeah,
because we want to work, we are working together still, and hopefully always, because it was a really wonderful partnership. And a funny side note about Marine, so I was saying earlier that Dahlia and I don't have technically Lebanese citizenship because the mom doesn't pass it along, but Marine Vaillant, who is French 100%, although she did live 13 years in Lebanon and has a Lebanese daughter, married a Lebanese man, and so she's Lebanese, but we're not.
That must have been a fun joke for her to pass around as you're in Lebanon.
Oh, it was, because it wasn't just me and Dahlia. Also, our DP has the same situation because her dad's Palestinian. So the three of us, and we were like, oh, go ask Marine Vaillant, the Lebanese one, for like, whatever, if we needed a word, I don't know. Running joke is my point.
Again, we circle back to the humor to process these horrible realities. That is, I think it's a wonderful team that you guys have put together, and the result, Roadblock, is truly phenomenal. If people are interested in viewing Roadblock, is it going to be available for purchase at some point to view online? Are you screening at more festivals? How are you guys promoting the film now? Now that especially you've won this awesome, amazing prize.
I think now, like, the premiere of Roadblock was in 2020. And it has had a long festival journey, which we're super proud of. And so I think we're getting to the end of it, because I think that you can't submit.
Festival is done.
So I think now is the last festival screenings, and then it will very probably be online. I think it's already on a regional platform, but I'm so sorry about the name of it.
That's all right.
That's it's going to be available online very soon, I think.
Menasa is the name of the platform.
Yes,
Menasa. Okay, wonderful. We'll make sure that people have the availability to look for and find the film. I've spoken about it with a few friends, and they've all expressed a great interest. They're like, where can I watch it? I'm like, I'll find out. But it is truly wonderful. And you both alluded to projects you're working on currently. Do they kind of follow similar themes? Are you exploring new themes? And when can we expect to see those new projects from you guys?
So my second short film is going to be screened soon. It's a completely different subject. It tackles more the end of life, but it's still in Lebanon, following the love story of two elderly people. And my feature film is actually on it's on the theme of the Ethiopian women that are working as in-house maids in Lebanon, who are completely we don't talk about them.
Marginalized.
Yes.
So that's the subject of the feature that I'm working on. The feature, though, when you will see it, I have no idea. A long time, I guess. But, we're on the right track, so we're happy.
Wonderful. And Pascale, what about you?
As for me, so I'm developing my first feature-length screenplay. It's about dance in Lebanon. ballet, which is pretty rare over there. And I'm also co-writing my first comedy series, which is, well, about Lebanese people, but in France. So you've got, again, with your diaspora obsession, mine, I guess. As for when you'll see it, ask God, because only God knows.
Inshallah, it will be soon.
Inshallah soon.
It has been an absolute pleasure to speak with you both. Our highest congratulations to you, Pascale and Dahlia, and to Marine. This film was truly remarkable. We're really excited to celebrate you at the presentation of the award and to screen it for the audience there. Alf Mabruk, you guys are truly incredible. And thank you so much for joining us today.